got all those beds in there because I felt sorry for you guys. So just grab a bed now. Okay, here we go, like 5 seconds, and you're live.
Alrighty, well hello, my name is Corey and I'm going to be showing you how to make your own font today, at least a couple of different methods. And this PowerPoint presentation, it's not really artistic looking, so there's a lot of people back at school would be rather disappointed in me for this, but that's okay. I lost my connection. There we go. Is it on? Okay, all right. Well, let's get started then. Here, some definitions first for those people who might need them. These are different terminology. Terminology that's going to be used. Letter form is actually just an individual letter, or something that claims to be a letter, and we'll get into that later on. Font is actually a set of letters that share the same attributes. So when you talk about a font family per se, a lot of times it'll include a bold or italic or something like that. But all the letters, uppercase and lowercase, if there's lowercase, all have the same. They all share the same attributes. They all look the same and everything. Typography in general, one definition is the art of designing letters. I like to take it a little further and say it's the art of designing and implementing, a typeface into a design. Some typefaces have very limited use when it comes to designing something. Others have quite a broad range. So, history lesson. These are throughout time, and all the way back to when they used to carve out type, with ancient tools, and they used to carve them out of stone and everything. There's fonts have sort of evolved from from one style to another. Most of these, had quite a long life, I would say, and they sort of built off of each other. We'll start with the old style. Old style, Garamond is an example of this font, and it closely resembles something that, that I guess that you would have seen first. It's a nice font. It's got, the letters are very thin and everything, but it makes for a nice readable font, I think. Times New Roman, obviously one that we all use as a default for any type of Word document that we create. Times New Roman is a font. It sort of builds upon the last font. The letters themselves are still very thin. This, I guess, is italic font. This is sort of an example of italic font. All it really means is the letters are slanted to one side, but a lot of times it's used to distinguish a particular word or something like that in a paper. Transitional. I'm trying to remember all of the information on sort of how these evolved, but perhaps this was more of just for viewing, less for me talking about. But as you can see, the letters themselves get a little thicker. They look a little different. I have no other information about that one. We talk about modern fonts. Bodoni is a good example. Bodoni is a nice font. I like it an awful lot. It's more of a thicker font as well. A lot of the letters look the same, but as in the case of like the Q has its little thing coming out the bottom of it. It's something that has a lot more use, for a lot of different kinds of design pieces. Egyptian fonts, these are a little bit interesting. I think the other term is slab serif that they're usually called, but Rockwell's a good example of one of these fonts. There's a lot of, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, but the letters are very thick, and they have a little, out of each letter there's a little, I guess what the slab is a little thing at the bottom, like of the X and the F, for example. So these have limited use, really. I don't use them very often. They're, I guess, appealing to the eye for some people, but it's not something that I typically see in the design that I do or the design that anybody else I know does. Sans serif fonts, this is sort of more of a modern font. Arial, which is actually just a knockoff of a font called Helvetica. The sans serif font, and we'll get into what serif and sans serif fonts are in a sec, but this one's a pretty clean one. This is used for more of display You know, if you're trying to catch somebody's eye, you know, and make a big, you know, if it's just like one word or something, you know. All right, sans serif fonts. They have little small elements to the ends of the main strokes, and where all the arrows are pointing is a good example of what I'm talking about. So they're more of just, you know, little design elements, but serif fonts are used in, you know, most types of publication, newspapers and magazines and everything like that. Supposedly allows the you know, the person who's reading the article or whatever, it allows them to read it easier. I guess just because the letters connect more to themselves, to one another, so it makes it a little bit more easier. And then sans serif fonts don't have these small elements added to the end. They're just these are a bunch of different examples, but they're more used for display fonts. Again, you know, like a title. You know, for like if you had a title for an event, that would be the you know, a sans serif font would be used for the title itself, and all your like information would probably be in a serif font somewhere else on the page. Let's see. In my synopsis, I had something about discussing 3D typography. Now, this is something that I've just gotten into recently. You know, most people think typography is flat or two-dimensional. Dimensional typography makes you think about typography in terms of time and space. Time being like if it's some type of animation piece, you know, the way the type scrolls across the screen, whether it does any rotation or anything like that, that's a different way to look at it than, say, reading this right here. Space, because you know, we'll get into the ways that 3D typography shows space. But if you're thinking about it, when you read this, these are flat two-dimensional letters in 3D typography. A lot of times, I mean, you have to sometimes walk around it, look at it from different angles to get an idea of what it's like. Ways that letters have been rendered dimensional, and we'll try to get through the rest of this without too much longer. Extrusion, shadowing, sewing, and bloating. These are just four. There's a couple of other ways as well. Extrusion, letter forms look as if they are stacked on top of each other. Sort of the way pages are stacked in a book. 20th Century Fox, his logo. If you ever watch that animation, how it starts and then it goes around, you can see that the type itself sort of stretches out. And it's the most often used method for showing 3D type. It's powerful and expressive, but rather predictable, something that people use to gain people's attention. But there are other ways to go about it. Examples, it's going to be hard to see the one on the left, but that's a typeface that is extruded. The H that I drew the other day on the right there, that's sort of what I'm talking about. A lot of times the extrusion of a letter form will go back a lot farther than this, but it sort of gives the idea of a 3D, you know, letter form, something that you know, something that you wouldn't normally see, you know, reading a magazine or something like that. Shadowing, this is sort of another easy way to you know, to show a 3D typeface. It, you know, light source implies depth, so, and it's pretty common enough that, you know, a drop shadow option is in most page layout software. You can, you know, put a drop shadow, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Quark Express, I believe, any of those. It doesn't usually look too good though, especially if you're using it, you know, to produce some kind of, you know, print piece. It's sort of a cheesy way to, to show what you're trying to show. Again, you'd never use a shadowing technique if you were doing some kind of, you know, if you were writing, or if you're printing stuff, an article in the newspaper, you wouldn't want to use shadowing, of course, you know, on the words, because then you wouldn't be able to read anything. Here's an example. This font, the darkness in the back there, that's a shadow, so it's sort of implying depth, even though the letter form itself could still be two-dimensional.
Bell South, Quest, well, that was kind of a pseudo. They stole somebody's stock to become a phone company. and then come over, you know, with it. So as consumers, we're always at their beck and call, whatever we want. Okay, you're forced to have for DSL. You're forced to have now. They're starting to get away with it. In fact, Verizon. Anybody in Verizon territory? I can tell you a couple things. April 10th, you're able to have DSL without a phone. Secondly, if you switch over to Verizon, kiss your copper.
Specifically, as I work with a core group of designers, and we all know better than to do that. There are other ways, certainly, to grab people's attention with typography. So a lot of times, if you see something like that around, that's usually not something we really is in my department. But that's sort of our job, is to, where we're just to help people with their design needs and to help people realize the rights and wrongs of design. It can make a huge difference, in whether something you do gets noticed or not. But definitely shadowing, definitely extrusion are two things that are used. I mean, again, extrusion's effective. People use it enough, that it must work, some of the time. Yeah. No, it should be fully charged. Yeah, it's connected right now, but is it full power?
Oh, power's on the Mac too.
Is it?
Yeah, so
I didn't see any problems like that, man, so.
they just over the speaker.
Must have been.
Yeah, right now it's Well, I would say a font that's effective enough, something that is a little different, but not too cheesy. There's this font called Comic Sans, which people like to use all the time for everything. And it's a funny little font, but it really doesn't work for anything else than maybe a flyer for a beach party or something like that. I would say typeface that'll grab the eye, but not something too cheesy. Something that's effective but hasn't been used a million times before. And just the way the whole thing, whether it's a flyer or a book or whatever, the way it's laid out, will make great. Color also helps too with any design.
Website in order.
It's buried, but you can find it.
You can find it.
It's not an advertised service.
Okay. Well, I'm an SBC AT&T affiliate, and I sell their new Direct Connect as far as what they call their web partner program. I do roughly about somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 of those sales a month. People are calling me up. How do I get this cheap thing? Well, you can just go here, here, here. We show them how to do it. Put in my affiliate link. I make $10, and off they go. Okay. But the problem, it is there. But
is this just for print? I've heard reflecting things like when you get into a website, you want to have the body, like the information there in sans serif, and then only use your serif fonts and the title and headers and things like that.
Okay, well, my knowledge of the web and all the different standards and things like that, I guess, is pretty limited. I guess I can believe that, though. Perhaps on the screen it works a little